Prince William is reportedly planning to exclude Harry from his future coronation, seek a de facto restraining order, keeping his brother away from his family and children, and strip him of his titles the moment he becomes king.
Charlotte Snuggles is no longer feeling snuggly anymore, clearly. So, I mean, she could be slightly angry and peeved that not only did she keep this relationship quiet for a large number of years, which she could have easily solved, I think it's more that Harry tried to destroy her career by not only calling her a liar, but by also saying in court that she obtained information illegally.
These are not rumors from anonymous sources in fringe publications. These are accounts now seeping into the mainstream media, discussed openly on major British news channels, and attributed to people with genuine proximity to the situation. And if accurate, they represent the most significant statement yet about the permanent state of the relationship between the two brothers. Let's start with the coronation question, because it is the most seismically significant element. William's coronation will happen when Charles is no longer king. The deliberate decision not to think too carefully about that timing reflects an understandable sensitivity around Charles's health and his ongoing cancer battle. But the reality is that the question of Harry's role in a future coronation is now a live one, and the answer that is emerging from those close to William is unambiguous. Harry will not be there. He will not be invited. And that exclusion will be the clearest possible signal that the rupture is permanent, that there is no road back, that whatever remained of the brotherhood has been definitively closed off. The comparison to a wedding exclusion is apt. When you do not invite a family member to your wedding, it is not a minor social slight. It is a statement about the fundamental status of the relationship. A coronation carries even more weight because it is not just a personal milestone, but a moment of historic and institutional significance. If Harry is not at William's coronation, it will be recorded in history as the moment the brothers formally became strangers. Every subsequent reference to that event, every archive photograph, every documentary, Harry's absence will be noted and will require explanation. That is a permanent mark on the record.
Charlotte Griffiths did decide to go there to reveal that Prince William has absolutely no intention of his younger brother being at that event. And that would be a seismic moment, Tash, because that would be saying, it's done, it's over, forever. There is no way back. It's a bit like if you don't invite one of your relatives to your wedding.
The restraining order language is striking and deserves careful unpacking. In literal legal terms, a restraining order between members of the royal family would be extraordinary. But the practical reality it describes, Harry being formally told by William's security and protection detail to stay away from William's family and children, is less about legal procedure and more about the formalization of a physical boundary. William, who as a future king will have enormous control over access and security arrangements, will simply ensure that Harry cannot get close. Not through a court order, but through the practical architecture of who is permitted where and when. The message will be delivered not through solicitors, but through security protocols, and it will be unambiguous.
Do you think that's driven by spite? Is William at the stage now where you could say that he genuinely, and I don't know whether this is too strong a word, but hates his brother?
I don't think it's too strong a word, and I think it is driven by spite, but also by fear. And it was interesting you mentioned the Telegraph article, because there's long been speculation online that in previous ceremonies to do when the Queen was alive, royal ceremonies.
The recording concerns are central to understanding why William's position has reached this point. There have been persistent questions, never definitively answered, about whether Harry recorded conversations during his time in the royal family, conversations that subsequently appeared in some form in his memoir or in the content produced for Netflix and Oprah. The image that has circulated of Harry appearing to fiddle with his lapel at a royal event in a manner consistent with operating a recording device cannot be confirmed or denied as evidence of anything. But it exists, and it exists in a context where Harry has demonstrably been documenting and reproducing private family conversations in public formats. What William has to calculate now is the risk that any future interaction with Harry becomes material, a conversation at a family event, an exchange during a shared ceremony, a private moment that Harry then processes through the filter of whatever the next commercial project is. The memoir demonstrated that Harry will reproduce extremely personal private conversations, including conversations with his father, during some of the most difficult moments of their relationship and sell them as content. The Netflix documentary demonstrated that private family dynamics will be filmed and aired. The Oprah interview demonstrated that the most intimate aspects of family relationships are available for public consumption if the commercial opportunity is sufficient. Given all of that, William's decision to maintain a formal physical and communicative distance from Harry is not spite, exactly. It is rational risk management. Every interaction is a liability. Every shared moment is potential content. Every private conversation is a future chapter. And when you are the future king of Great Britain, the risk calculation around uncontrolled content generation by a family member who has demonstrated no restraint in these matters becomes very serious indeed.
William hates Harry. That's big. You know, William will not have Harry at the coronation. And actually, finally, an acknowledgement, and I know you feel a bit queasy about this, Tash, and I do understand there is a big debate about it, but finally, an acknowledgement from the mainstream media too, that at some point we are going to have to deal with this.
Now, let's talk about Charles's health, because this conversation is no longer one that can be avoided with reference to sensitivity. Charles is living with cancer. His doctors have been managing the situation, but the management involves treatments that carry their own cost to his energy, his appearance, his capacity to sustain the demanding schedule that the role requires. Reports suggest that in order to get through the planned state visit to the United States and Bermuda, his treatment may need to be paused. That is not a trivial decision. Pausing cancer treatment to fulfill royal duties is a statement about how seriously Charles takes the role, and it is also a statement about the medical situation underlying it. The parallel drawn with Prince Philip is instructive but should not be overstated. Philip was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in a form that was inoperable, and he managed to survive for 8 years from that diagnosis, far longer than the typical timeline. Charles's cancer is different in its specifics, but the underlying message about longevity and the unpredictability of these timelines is relevant. Medical technology is genuinely advancing. The treatments available today are different from what was available a decade ago. Charles is receiving excellent care. And none of that means the situation is not serious, or that William should be comfortable with the idea of Harry generating ongoing controversy and content at this specific moment in the family's life.
Have a much shorter life than
yes,
what we expected.
Although, if we keep on that sort of train of thought, Tash, Prince Philip survived for 7 years. So
Exactly.
Look, I've been very honest with my reporting about this. I do try and be sensitive, but Charles will live with cancer now for the rest of his life.
The question of what William's kingship will look like is one that has been discussed in hushed tones for several years, but is now being raised more openly. The consensus among those who know William well, and among those who follow the institutional logic of the monarchy, is that his approach will be significantly different from Charles's in one specific respect. He will be considerably less patient with people and situations that create ongoing institutional damage. Charles has rolled with the punches, as palace sources have described it, accepting the ongoing Sussex provocation as something the institution simply has to absorb. William does not appear to share that assessment. His view, as reported, is that the institution cannot indefinitely absorb the kind of damage that the Australian tour and 5 years of preceding Sussex activity has produced. When William is king, the institutional resources that currently provide Harry with a certain degree of protection, the titles, the place in the succession, the implicit association with the crown, will be within William's power to address directly. The stripping of titles that Charles has declined to initiate will be a live question for William from the moment of his accession, and the reported answer is that it will not remain a question for long. Now let's turn to the legal case, because it has produced developments this week that are extraordinary, even by the standards of everything else happening in the Sussex story. Harry's legal action against the publishers of the Daily Mail has been one of the most high-profile cases of its kind, a claim that the tabloid engaged in unlawful information gathering, phone hacking, and other invasive journalistic practices over many years. The case has been presented as Harry fighting for justice, for accountability, for the protection of ordinary people from a powerful and unscrupulous press. What has emerged in recent proceedings tells a considerably more complicated story.
With him, I don't think there's any coming back. When you think about how Prince William has always been, he's always had a tight circle of friends, and it's always been a known thing with Prince William. If you betray him, you're out. That's it. It's done. And that's with his friends. And Harry hasn't just done one thing, he's done lots of things, and a lot of it has been lies. And he's attacked his wife, he's brought his children into it. We only have to look at Harry.
A witness who was approached to provide testimony in support of Harry's case has described a process that raises serious questions about how that testimony was obtained and presented. The witness described receiving a pre-drafted statement from Harry's legal team, a statement that contained the narrative the legal team wanted to present, with the witness then invited to add to or subtract from it. The witness described having too much to add and too much to take out, suggesting the pre-drafted version was significantly different from what the witness actually knew and experienced. When the witness challenged the statement, he described becoming a problem with pressure being applied to sign off on a version that served the legal team's purposes rather than accurately reflecting his knowledge. This is a very serious allegation. Pre-drafting witness statements and then pressuring witnesses to adopt those statements as their own is not a legally permissible practice. It is the kind of conduct that, if proven, would not just undermine Harry's legal case, it would potentially expose his legal team to serious professional consequences.
Very well put, Tash, absolutely. And I think that restraining order will be absolutely necessary. Prince William won't have to go through formal channels, but I imagine his security and his police protection will be told, that man stays away from my family.
And this witness is not the only person to have raised concerns. There have been separate reports of a statement attributed to another witness, Gavin Burrows, that contained a forged signature. Someone, according to these reports, added a signature to a statement that the supposed signatory had not actually endorsed, hoping it would not be detected. The irony of all this is profound, and it needs to be stated directly. Harry brought this legal action on the basis that the Daily Mail and its associated publications obtained information through illegal means. The specific allegation was that journalists used unlawful methods, hacking, blagging, surveillance, to gather private information about people, including Harry. And now the proceedings have produced credible accounts of Harry's own legal team drafting statements for witnesses, pressuring witnesses to sign statements they did not write, and potentially forging signatures on witness statements. The conduct being alleged on Harry's side of this case is potentially more legally problematic than anything the newspapers are accused of having done.
Rough in America for Meghan lately. With Love, Meghan canceled, as you know. As ever, her products spilling out of the Netflix merchandise closet. Jam jars left on hall tables. Reports of bitchiness on conference calls. Abrupt departures in the middle of calls when things aren't going the right way. And the toughest report of all, that Ted Sarandos, the CEO of Netflix, wouldn't talk to her without a lawyer on the line. Now, all of that was refuted.
The newspapers have an extensive paper trail demonstrating, they say, that their reporting was obtained through legitimate means. Harry's legal team has produced, if these accounts are accurate, a constructed narrative that witnesses were pressured to adopt rather than evidence that the witnesses themselves generated independently. That is the shape of the case that is emerging. And whatever the eventual verdict on the underlying phone hacking claims, the reputational damage to Harry from the process is already substantial and ongoing. He will predictably distance himself from anything that emerges about his legal team's conduct. He will say he did not know what his lawyers were doing. He will say he trusted them to pursue the case properly and they let him down. This is the pattern. When something goes wrong in the Sussex operation, the responsibility always lands on staff, on PR operatives, on legal teams, on anyone other than Harry and Meghan themselves. Meredith Maine's leaving was the Kardashian party's fault. The Netflix underperformance was a creative mismatch. The Spotify collapse was a strategic recalibration. And whatever happens with the legal case will be framed in time as the lawyer's problem rather than Harry's. But at some point, the pattern becomes the story. At some point, the accumulation of people and institutions and legal teams and PR operatives and speaking agents all simultaneously failing Harry and Meghan in different ways across different contexts over 5 years. That accumulation points to something other than a run of bad luck. It points to the person at the center of all these failures. And William, watching all of this from his position as the future king, appears to have reached his own conclusion about what that person represents and what the appropriate response to it is. The restraining order concept, informal, practical, built into the architecture of security rather than the architecture of law, represents William's answer. You do not have to engage with someone who keeps generating content from the engagement. You do not have to invite someone to your ceremonies who has demonstrated they will reproduce those ceremonies in memoir form. You do not have to include someone in your family's life who has shown repeatedly and at great personal and institutional cost that they will use every access point to serve their own narrative and commercial purposes. William cannot yet act on all of these instincts. He is not the king. The decisions about titles and succession and formal exclusions are Charles's to make, and Charles has chosen the path of patience and institutional rolling with punches. But the direction of travel is clear. The people close to William are describing his intentions clearly enough. And when the time comes when William is king and the institutional levers are in his hands, the relationship between the two brothers will be formally redefined in ways that make the current estrangement look relatively moderate by comparison. Harry is in Australia, taking his bow after a tour that has produced hospital atrium stunts and fashion listings at massacre sites and booing at rugby matches and 122 minutes at an undersold retreat. He is suing the Daily Mail through legal teams that may have pre-drafted witness statements and forged signatures.
Same. I've watched quite a few of his clips, and he's actually got that real dry humour that I can imagine actually some of it is lost on some Americans because they don't get our sarcasm. But he does have that sort of dry wit to him, and just listening to that, yeah, I think he's saying that that's the show. That's how it was meant to look. Look, they're clasped together. Look, he's showing his big smile.
He is giving speeches about lying on kitchen floors in the fetal position while invoking his mother's memory as justification for choices she could never have endorsed. He is being booed at sporting events in a country that gave him an extraordinary welcome in 2018 and is now registering its changed assessment through silence and scattered boos on a big screen. And somewhere in Britain, his brother is planning a coronation that Harry will not attend, planning security arrangements that will keep Harry away from his children, planning a kingship that will begin, among other things, with the removal of the titles that are currently the last remaining commercial asset of the Sussex operation. Not out of cruelty, not out of spite, exactly, but out of an assessment formed over 5 years of watching his brother make choice after choice that has caused damage he considers unforgivable, that the institution he is preparing to lead cannot survive indefinitely absorbing that damage. The ending of this story is not written yet, but the broad outline of it is becoming clearer with every passing week. And it does not, based on everything that is now visible, look like the ending Harry and Meghan envisioned when they left. Let me go deeper on the William and Harry dynamic, because I think it is misread by a significant portion of people who follow this story, and getting it right matters for understanding where things are heading. The narrative that has been constructed around the estrangement, largely by the Sussex communications machine, but also by observers who are inclined toward a more sympathetic reading of Harry's position, is that William is the cold, rigid, institutionally captured older brother who failed to support Harry when Harry needed him most, that William was part of the system that broke Harry, that if William had been more willing to advocate for his brother, to challenge the palace machinery, to stand alongside Harry against a hostile press and a dysfunctional institution, things might have gone differently. There are elements of this narrative that contain truth. William and Harry grew up in extraordinary circumstances with shared trauma. They both lost their mother in a manner that was violent and public and deeply damaging. William is not a man without flaws. He has not always been perfectly supportive. The relationship between brothers at the highest levels of royal life is genuinely complicated and genuinely difficult. But the narrative collapses when you hold it against the actual documented record of what has happened over the past 5 years. William did not accuse Harry of racism. William did not go on Oprah and say things about Harry that were later disputed by multiple witnesses. William did not write a memoir that reproduced private family conversations in intimate detail. William did not produce a Netflix documentary that aired private family dynamics for global audiences. William did not make speeches at AFL clubs about evolving past his father's parenting while that father is fighting cancer. William has not monetized a massacre site. The asymmetry in what the two brothers have actually done is not subtle. One of them has consistently, repeatedly, and at significant personal cost maintained a public silence about the private details of his relationship with his brother, even as that brother has been doing the precise opposite. And William's reported intention to formalize a distance through coronation exclusions and security arrangements is the response of someone who has absorbed a very great deal and reached the conclusion that there is
embarrassment and a disaster. But he also knows that part of this first look deal means that he can get his pound of flesh from Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. And guess what, Tash? He got a lot of publicity for this. And what did that publicity lead to? A lot more people speaking about the second series of Beef, a show that he actually believes in, with a star who he actually believes in Carrie Mulligan.
nothing more to absorb. The Charlotte Griffiths element of this week's story is worth addressing because it is unusual and significant. Griffiths is the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday and a regular royal commentator on GB News. She has a history with Harry that has been the subject of considerable online speculation, with messages between them emerging that suggested a relationship that was more than strictly professional. Whatever the nature of that relationship, it is relevant context for her commentary, context that has been conspicuously absent from the platforms on which she has been discussing Harry in recent weeks. What is notable now is that Griffiths is saying things publicly about Harry and William that are considerably less sympathetic to Harry than her previous public commentary has been. She described William as someone who may hate his brother, not wanting to soften it excessively, but acknowledging it as a possibility. She endorsed the restraining order concept as something that will be absolutely necessary.
I don't know about you, but let's just watch this, because it seemed to me like he was almost coming quite close to saying words were put into his mouth, but by Harry's legal team. But I want to show you what he said. Watch this.
Did you write your statement, or did they write a statement and ask you to approve it?
Pre-drafted. It's on the tin, pre-drafted.
She described Harry as almost unstable in his hatred of his brother, and said he has proved himself capable of genuinely hurting William in ways that go beyond normal family conflict. These are not the assessments of someone who retains a warm or protective feeling toward Harry. They are the assessments of someone who has reason to know Harry well and has arrived at a set of conclusions that are not flattering. Whether the impetus for this shift is personal, professional, or simply an honest response to the accumulation of evidence, the content of what she is saying is significant regardless of the motivation. The question of whether William's response is driven by hate or by something more complex is worth sitting with. The word hate is a strong one, and people who know William have generally resisted using it even in private. What seems more accurate, based on the reporting that has accumulated over time, is something like deep, settled disappointment, combined with active concern about ongoing institutional risk and personal betrayal, and a resulting determination to formalize boundaries that will protect his family and his future kingship from further damage. That is not exactly hate, but it is not forgiveness either. And it is not the kind of position from which reconciliation is easy or perhaps even possible while the Sussex operation continues to function the way it currently functions. Now let's come back to the legal case, because there is one more dimension worth exploring.
Prince Harry, you lie down with the dogs, you stand up with fleas, you're literally working with criminals, and what a surprise, these criminals are now starting to turn on you. This case, no matter what the result is.
The conduct of Harry's legal team, the pre-drafted statements, the alleged forgery, the pressure on witnesses, does not just damage Harry's legal position, it potentially damages the broader campaign for press accountability that Harry has presented as his motivation for bringing the case in the first place. Harry has framed his legal actions against British tabloids as a matter of principle. He has said he is fighting not just for himself, but for all the ordinary people who were subjected to illegal press intrusion and who lack the resources to pursue justice. He has presented himself as a champion of press accountability, someone willing to bear significant personal cost in order to bring wrongdoing to light. If it emerges that his pursuit of press accountability involved drafting witness statements that did not reflect witnesses' actual knowledge, pressuring those witnesses to adopt narratives they did not generate, and potentially forging signatures to make it appear that witnesses had endorsed statements they had, not the principled framing, collapses entirely. You cannot simultaneously claim to be fighting against the corrupt use of power while using power corruptly to advance your case. The hypocrisy would be of the same order as claiming to be the world's most trolled person while tolerating the Sussex squad, or claiming to protect children from social media harm while monetizing visits to children's cancer wards. The pattern is consistent. The stated values and the actual behavior are in fundamental tension. The press accountability argument sits alongside the tabloid briefing when it suits. The privacy argument sits alongside the memoir. The mental health advocacy sits alongside the therapy content produced for commercial speeches. And now, the legal accountability argument potentially sits alongside conduct by the legal team that raises serious questions about how that accountability was being pursued. Harry is not stupid. He is, as Bauer has noted, not particularly intellectually deep, but he is not stupid. He understands at some level that these contradictions exist. The question that has never been satisfactorily answered is whether the contradictions are the result of a lack of self-awareness, or whether they are the result of a decision that the ends justify the means, that the pursuit of the goals, whether commercial or personal or reputational, is worth the costs of the inconsistencies along the way. The Australian tour has not answered that question. The legal proceedings have not answered it, and William's reported plans for a coronation that excludes his brother do not answer it either. But they all point in the same direction, toward an ending that is not the one Harry scripted, toward a future in which the institution he left is led by a brother who has decided firmly and apparently irrevocably that the relationship as it currently exists is not one he can or should continue to maintain.
Prince Harry and all of the people that were part of that legal team, the researchers. Now, you know that Harry will wipe his hands clean if anything does come out that actually does, show pretty much criminal activity. He'll be like, I didn't know what my legal team were doing. I didn't know that David Sherborne was going to do this. I didn't know this, because that's what Harry does. He will, wash his hands, and I'm sure David Sherborne will blame it on someone else as well.
The titles, if William removes them, and the reporting suggests he will, upon his accession, will be the formal marker of that decision.
Chelsea Davies' flight doesn't look good. So that's the terrible thing. Harry could win on a technicality, but it doesn't mean he's won reputationally. And it doesn't mean that he walks away from this with his head held high, because actually, I think you have Prince William looking at all of this, and not just that, Tash, let's just look at the whole mess of the whole week. Do you know what I mean? Oh. Australia being sued by Centre Barley, and William just looks at all of this.
Without the Sussex titles, the commercial proposition that has sustained the last 5 years becomes very difficult to maintain. The speaking fees decline, the brand value declines. The reason for anyone to book a lifestyle retreat or commission fashion content or offer an executive producer credit declines. Everything that depends on people caring about Harry and Meghan as royals becomes considerably less viable. And that is the cliff edge that all of these developments, the tour, the legal case, the William estrangement, the coronation exclusion plans, are together approaching. The Sussex operation has been running for 5 years on borrowed time and borrowed status. The time and the status are both running shorter. William is waiting. The titles are waiting. The coronation is a future event whose proximity depends on Charles's health. And every week, every tour, every fashion listing at a massacre site, every pre-drafted witness statement, every booing at a rugby match, all of it is bringing that cliff edge a little closer. Harry came back from Australia. He will fly home to Montecito, to the mansion and the children and the lifestyle that the Sussex brand funds. And somewhere in that journey, he will have to confront, if he has not already, the question of what happens when the brand stops working, when William is king, when the titles go, when the thing that has sustained all of this is finally and formally removed. What is left? What was always there underneath the performance and the narrative and the content? That is the question that Australia has not answered and that the coming years will eventually force into the open.